my name's Adam. My name's Adam Brown. I've just found out that Brett basically tells everyone who comes on a trip that if the MDU ask, you put my name on the piece of paper, and that, as a consultant, that makes it all okay, and you can go and do stuff in my name. I've yet to have any letters from the MDU saying somebody's been killed, somebody had a serious incident, please do this RCA or anything like that. But that's basically my level of involvement, is leading the trips, clinically helping sort out the trips, clinically help recruiting the trips, and then the bottom line is that ultimately if there's a clinical problem, I will do my best to defend you, because it's you're the reason that you've gone to these places and things like that. So the setup that we have is one of training and governance, so that actually you go knowing there's not going to be a problem, and if I'm not going on the trip personally, myself and Brett can send you with authority and confidence that you aren't going to kill anyone. And as yet, nobody has. So that's awesome. And that gives me great confidence as well. The other reason I'm in the organisation is I'm quite short and I'm quite wide, but I get around most of the world pretty okay. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'll stay away from that. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes on governance, probably a bit less, because governance is good to chat about, but you want to get it out of the way. This isn't the after lunch speech where you all fall asleep. This is the kind of get it out of the way early, swift, painful, rip off a plaster. Expedition medicine is challenging. We are not working in a hospital. You are the hospital. The kit you have with you is the equipment, and then the rest is basically survival medicine, and you're doing what you can, where you can, how you can. But the wild does not excuse accountability, and that will become apparent as I talk in a minute. Can you press the arrow on the microphone so I don't have to go over there? So this is base camp in Peru. Holiday snap, sorry, had to put one in. This is base camp in Peru, in the cloud jungle, and these are the runners the night before they're about to start on a 240-kilometre ultramarathon. They've been pre-screened, we know their medical problems, and we're going around chatting to all of them, making sure they've got the right kit, the right medical equipment. We know about them, we know everything about them medically, so that we can take them safely through the race. Next one, please. So let's talk about what it means to be an Exile and the clinical governance structure that we put in. Call it what you like, read what you like. Expedition medicine is a specialty in itself. Wilderness medicine is the American equivalent of that. And really, if you want to look at the bigger picture of disaster relief work, expedition medicine, diving medicine, pre-hospital care, military, tropical, etc., it all dovetails into wilderness medicine. And there's a reason why it's shaped like that, and we'll talk about it in a minute. We're talking a lot about this. We're talking a lot about that. I know stuff about that, stuff about that. A little bit about that, plenty of that, none of that, some of that, and a little bit about that. You're not expected to be experts in everything. Gone are the days when you're a jack of all trades, master of none, guess as you go. Those days are gone. You pick a part of it and you become an expert in it, and the rest of the information dovetails and cross-links nicely into it. We are all about learning by doing. Courses will teach you so much, they won't teach you unless you're actually there treating people. And the way to get there is to get there supervised and get there and do it. Next slide, please. So let's start with the boring clinical governance NHS quote. We've all seen this thousands of times, and we all, give it lip service in a way, but actually it's mostly a subconscious quote. It's what we do every day. We do our best, we continue to do our best, and we want to get better within the resources that we have. It's no different in expeditions. Next slide, please. And a lot of clinical governance with expedition work is preparation. It's done before you go. There's limited value in trying to audit on an expedition. There's limited value in trying to do many things like research in a place where there's no Wi-Fi signal, or they can't even spell Wi-Fi because they've never heard of the word. Okay, it's really just a case of making sure that your preparation is tip-top. Answer all of your questions before you go. Answer all of your what-ifs before you get there, and actually you'll meet standards, you'll mitigate risk, you'll be clinically effective, and you'll be compliant. And the rest is just what happens on the job. Next slide, please. So where are we doing what we're doing? Next one. Sandy places. This is a horrible place to work when it comes to dirt, dust, kit management, trying to keep people clean, out of the wind, sheltered, cool, hydrated, and things like that. Again, plan for the environment that you're going to go to before you get there. Next one. We're in the jungle. This is my preferred environment. I love the jungle. I think personally it's the hardest environment because anyone who thinks as a child, or has anybody been to the jungle? Has anybody thinks the jungle's flat? It is so not flat. No, that's not saying that jungles grow on mountains, but they generally grow on really, really big hills, both up and down. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions with runners when they go there is just go, oh, trees, yay, oh, a bit damp, yay, a bit humid. What do you mean? Up and down and up and down. And they don't really plan for that very well. Next slide, please. And everybody loves going to mountains because you feel on top of the world. And mountains for British and Northern European countries are by far and away the commonest expeditions that people go on. And they bring the problems of expedition medicine, plus the specialty of altitude, plus temperature. Next one, please. I'm not going to say too much about water expeditions other than the fact they do carry a very special subset when it comes to water rescue, certain conditions which involve rescue claps and resuscitation on water, and that's all I'm going to say on that because that's not my field of expertise. But if you want to talk about that, we can most certainly point you in the right direction. Next slide. So why are we doing what we're doing? It's because expedition medicine 20, 30 years ago was a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic, a backpack, and are willing to go into the unknown. And the world is getting smaller, risk is getting bigger, and people don't want their loved ones to go on trips where they think they're going to come to harm. So that kind of means that we need to balance that risk out. We need to know what is fun, know what is challenging, know what is dangerous, not be a damp squib on that. That's not our job to say you can't climb that, that's too high, you might break your leg, and I haven't got the stuff for that. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to that, climb it. You know what'll happen. But if you fall and break your leg, I've only got these things here. And that's very much a different skill set to say to someone to risk manage it. Next. And most of the preparation you can do is let people know about the risk that they're about to take. And it's all about the information you give to them and then less about the kit that you carry. As long as they know what you've got, you know what they can do. Next slide, please. But we do live in a health and safety culture. And we have to make sure that because the reason I go is to have an adventure, have the best time possible, and we support those people to have the best adventure possible as well. Next slide. So I have to take the mickey out of Bear Grylls. It's not a personal thing. I'm just not really a Bear Grylls kind of guy. But for those of you who can't see, it's eating a fish raw and then 5 minutes later teaching people how to light a fire. I'd much rather do it the other way around. Light the fire, catch the fish, and have a nice meal. Next slide, please. So how are we doing what we're doing? What structures do we have that you can get involved in? Next slide, please. Well, we have an ever-evolving set of SOPs, and the SOPs are largely based on environment, not necessarily based on the clinical condition that you find in there. Chest pain is the same, but it's not the same in the jungle, in the cold, in the desert, on the mountain. Okay? Guidelines are as robust as they can be, bearing in mind the flexibility that you need in an environment that changes minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And what we do have is a whole set of clinical guidelines, which people will be very happy with. But what you need to be equally happy with are the non-clinical guidelines. You need to know how to contact help. You need to know how to use a radio and not sound a little bit special on the other end of it. You need to know that you can carry someone out of somewhere, or you need to know the type of stretch you're going to use, and you need to know how to operate around helicopters potentially, most certainly in modern day. Next slide, please. And this is what you end up taking with you. You can make a list in your own mind of all the things that you think you're going to need for a fortnight with 20 people ranging from the ages of 23 to 65 with medical conditions from asthma, epilepsy, and they're going to go on a run for 240 kilometers, and you're not going to be near them for any sort of period of time and expect them to carry the kit and you to carry the kit, and you think to yourself, well, where do I start? Well, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about the stuff that you need and the confidence that you have to deliver that. And actually, it comes down to these things. Yeah, next slide. This is the most important part of governance. I'll come on to you as individuals in a minute, but you have to be just a little bit OCD, which is really good for me because I'm a lot OCD. Okay? You have to be incredibly anal about how you store your kit. You have to be absolutely thorough on knowing what is where, when it is, who's got it and who's accountable for it. There is no excuse nowadays for just not keeping any records, because people on trips who have paid a minimum of 4-figure sums, who have a problem in a remote environment, are going to come back. And most expeditions nowadays, we deal with the acute, but the ramifications of coming back and your ongoing care means that you have to save evidence of what you've done, drugs that you've given, examinations that you've found, and be prepared to hand that on. Now, that doesn't happen a lot, but to say, oh, that's fine, don't worry about that, just carry on, is not going to cut it at some point in the next 5 years. I don't know when, but it's coming. Drug storage is always an amazing thing to talk about. Now, there are two ways to look at drugs, and there's two ways to look at the expeditions that you go on. If you have the skill set, you can buy anything you want to in the country that you're in, provided that you can just turn up and find it in a hospital. And you'll be amazed how easy it is to get ketamine in South America. You'll be amazed how hard it is to get morphine out of this country. Well, you won't be surprised how hard it is. It's impossible. Okay? So there are two ways to look at it. Do we buy in country, or do we transport out of the country? And the overwhelming safe, relatively available drugs that you can buy over the counter or take home as a TTA from any sort of hospital or GP practice is actually the sort of stuff we take. Any sort of controlled drugs we get when we're out there. But when you get them, if you get controlled drugs, you still have to be accountable for their storage, their management, their security, and that is something that you all have to think about within the team that you go. All the environments that we've mentioned, dust, mountain, hill, mud, not an excuse for not washing your hands, not using gloves, not using alcohol gel, okay? Your clinicians, do the best you can, but don't try and treat wounds with dirty hands and things like that. And clinical waste management, a little ditty, if you will. We went to Peru. We were doing the ultramarathon, and we have Peruvian runners. And we saw this Peruvian running past us with what looked like an amazing camelback. And what it was 2 water bottles, 2 giving sets out of the bin, poked through the top, running over his shoulder, and he was drinking through the giving sets that we'd used previously from a year before. Okay? That's not a criticism on our waste management, that's a positive for his ingenuity. But it did make you think about how he's got hold of those, because they were in the base, and then they've come and taken those off. And clinical waste management is at one point I just want to labour on, because the one thing that we love about going and doing these trips is we're there to not damage the environment. Anything we do, we must preserve the environment that we're going to. That's the whole reason for us going, is to look after people, keep them safe, and leave no footprints. Make it feel like we weren't there. And that's why you have to have a really robust sharp system, rubbish system, and things like that. Yeah, okay, you can throw away plasters. Everyone throws away plasters in other countries. But you have to know where your line is and bring your clinical waste with you, or dispose of it appropriately. Don't leave any trace of it behind. It's not the reason we're doing the trips. Confidentiality, okay, it's a patient, clinician, paramedic, nurse, doctor responsibility to make sure that's as confidential as. Generally, by day 2, everyone's talking about their own poo habits by then anyway. So the ice is broken relatively quickly, and people don't care about informal conversations. But make sure that you offer confidentiality. Don't talk loud. Take the patients away if they want to talk about something private, and make sure that you behave appropriately. We assume a lot of consent. We assume dangerous injuries in an austere environment mean that they want us to help them. I've not come across somebody who says, yeah, I'm fine on a broken ankle, I don't want your help, please, I can finish. Okay, we've not come across that at all. But please, just give it the lip service that it is. And prescription, when you're giving drugs, make sure you document that you're giving drugs. It just needs a runner number, a race number, or anything like that, but make sure you document that. And the one thing that's missing on there, which I'll be honest with, Emily made a good joke about the toilets being boys and adults, is I haven't discussed safeguarding. And the more and more expeditions are going, people are getting younger and younger and doing things. If you're going to do gap year or even close to gap year expeditions and things like that, make sure that your CRB and your safeguarding is up to date. It's just to protect you, no one else. Next slide, please. So that's what kit looks like when we go away. We take it in all sorts of containers, all sorts of means, all sorts of handles. And we have to get it from A to B. Who's doing what we're doing? Well, it's you lot. Next slide, please. It's all of us in the jungle, just having our briefings ready to go. Next slide, please. And this is the key slide when it comes to individuals. Are you trained? Well, you're never going to learn everything about an expedition on a course. You have to go and do it. You have to go and live it. Are you current? you have to at least be able to prove that you are practicing some sort of clinical care before you go on a trip within a recent time frame. That doesn't mean you can't do gap years, it doesn't mean you can't locum, it doesn't mean you can't have time off. But currency is vital. Experienced depends who you're going with, okay? You don't have to have the most expedition experience to go on an expedition. You have to be sensible, well briefed by someone who has done, and well planned. And that will do. And we'll talk more about that on a one-to-one basis. You have to be appropriate. You have to know that you can do the job. And that's always a challenge because sometimes people don't know. And we always use the ditty about why would you go and be an expedition medic on a trip to Kilimanjaro if you've never summited Kilimanjaro yourself? Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself at that risk and then put the expedition at risk because you don't know if you can do it? So be clear on the expectation put on you, because not only will you have to get up a mountain, once you're at the top of the mountain and you're blowing out of your proverbial bumhole, you'll then be expected to treat casualties and then bring them straight back down again. That's just a thought process for you guys. And protected. Speak to your defence union, tell them I'm here, go from there. Next slide, please. And we get to work in all sorts of wonderful places at all sorts of time of day. This is a dark in a shack in Peru at the end of a long stage, and we're basically tending to people's feet to make sure they can run the next day. And it is about the survivability of the expedition. You want people to finish, you want people to complete. We don't want people to withdraw, we want people to come, have a good time, and us to help them fulfill that. On the trip, when we're doing those things, there will be a senior clinician. It won't always be me, but there will be a nominated senior clinician who will have extensive discussions with myself and Brett and will be a leader, more of which I will talk about in a later talk. A lot of the time there'll be a team, unless it's just you, and then you are the team. We have case discussions, we'll supervise your practice, we'll train as we'll go, we'll give you dynamic feedback. But ultimately, this conference is the beginning of a continuous learning environment from throughout the day, throughout your trips, throughout your trip pre-meets, and after your expeditions, and a bit of consolidation as well. We want you to develop. For those that have been, we want you to develop more. For those who have not been, come and develop. So hopefully I've not made it sound like it's too challenging. It's very doable. If I can do it, people can do it. It is austere, but that's the challenge. You go well prepared, well drilled, well skilled, and then all you have to deal with when you get out there is the environment. No problem that you get out there should be a surprise. There's always weird and wonderful, but it shouldn't be a surprise. And wilderness, the remoteness of the world, does not mean that you can't be accountable for your practice. But that's not meant to be as a threat, that's meant to be as a challenge. I think that's it. I'm overrun, I'm sorry. And I'll see you around all day and we'll have a chat. Thanks very much.